Hi, my name is TJ. My dad died of overdose on January 1st, 2011, and my mom is a recovering addict. God helped my mom, and now together we are here to help you. Now let's talk recovery. Here's your host, my mom, Susan Sexton-Wood.
And welcome to Let's Talk Recovery. I am your host, Susan Sexton-Wood. Today, our guest is Billie Winningham. And Billie, I know pretty much on a personal level now. Addiction has touched her life and been a devastation also to her life. And so I want to welcome Billie to the show.
Thank you.
Just to be real, she says she's a little bit nervous, and if we had a window in the bathroom, she would have jumped out of it. So we're going to help her to just feel welcome, and it's just going to be her and I sitting here talking a little bit. I'll ask you to first just share a little bit about your testimony, whatever God puts on your heart, and you're here because you're the mother of an addict, and just what that has done to your life.
My son's name was Corey. He'd typical kid. He was a good kid, into hunting, fishing, loved outdoors. Got his first deer on his 10th birthday. Pretty good kid. Totally against drugs, cigarettes, everything. Until he turned 16, he was out with some friends riding four-wheelers, and he'd wrecked and broke his leg, and the doctor had prescribed him pain pills. And I kind of let him take control. I worked of the pain pills while I was at work, take them as needed. Mm-hmm. And anyway, he got to liking the pain pills, and it started from there with the pain pill addiction, and later led into the heroin. And he started when he was 16 on the heroin, and would tell me later, a couple years later, how he had went into a wooded area alone and things like this. He was going out there to shoot up and alone. This was when he was 16, and he did it for 6 months and got himself off of it. And then continued to do the pills, drinking and smoking pot. Corey's dad died March of 2014, and Corey went downhill from there. It really affected him. He started in with the heroin again and battled it for about 4 years. Later he had overdosed a couple of times. The third time at Reed Hospital, the chaplain came in and talked to him and told him about a place called the Hope House here in Richmond. And Corey decided to go. So he went out and did a 4-month stay at the Hope House. Found the Lord, got baptized, got saved, did awesome. Got out of the Hope House, moved in with an aunt and uncle, really religious people, good people in the community, and he did good. Worked 2 and 3 different jobs, just happy. Got my old son back, and we got a call. He was 11 months clean. We got a call the night before Thanksgiving, and they had found him. Somebody had found him in a gas station bathroom in Dayton, overdosed. And that was the first relapse after the Hope House and everything. And he realized he'd made a mistake, wanted to get back on track. And for the next week after that, he did good, but he was still battling. He couldn't fight it, and the next overdose, it took his life on December the 5th. He had just turned 23 years old 2 weeks prior. So it's been very devastating. It's just really done a number on me. Very devastating. You know, he was not only my son, he was my best friend also. So it's been pretty hard to learn to live without him, get through every day.
Right.
I come to Susan for counseling. She's helped me a lot.
And you go to a support group?
Go to the Brianna's Hope on Monday evenings when I can make it.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a lot there, you know. A lot of things I done wrong, enabling him, and just a lot of things I've done wrong. I've learned, if I had the chance to do it over, you know, I would do a different approach, make him go to meetings and not give him money and enable him and be more supportive of him. Because through his addiction, I would just get so frustrated, and I would say mean things to him. Didn't really mean it, I guess. I was just trying to get through to him one way or another to make him realize, you've got to get off of this stuff. It's ruining you. But in the meantime, I would say mean things to him, and I've got a lot of regret with the mean stuff that I'd said to him. And so there's a lot of things I would do different. I've learned from the meetings I should have been more supportive and realized how much of a struggle it was for him.
And ultimately it wasn't your fault.
Right.
That's decisions that we make, and even decisions you make in your life. When you make a decision, it's not somebody else's fault that you made that decision.
Right.
One thing we've talked about is you have been coming in probably about 4 months,
Yep.
I guess. And you're working on yourself. You're working on some of the pain, and I think you did blame yourself a lot at the beginning. And so working on yourself, one thing that I've heard you say is you do want to share his story. And so you have spoken at an event for us, actually two, wasn't it? 2 events. And it's took a little persuading, but you've come on here too. And one thing that we're big at through Unchained Praises is we hear that a person has passed away, and it's another male or a female, and how old they were, and it was another overdose. But we want to know who the person was, and we want the world to know who the person was. I had the privilege to meet Corey one time, and he passed away, I think it was less than a week after the first time that I met him, but I could see instantly the type of person that he was. And sometimes we get judged by our addiction so fast that you don't see the heart that the person has, their desire for life. They like to laugh and have fun, and you don't see that because people want to judge the addict. And so we want people to know who Corey was. What kind of things did he like? I know he had a heart for people. He wanted to do things. And so what kind of things can you share with us that made Corey Corey?
Corey, he had a big heart. He just had a big heart. Good kid, always holding the doors open for me. Just simple things like that. Always mowed the yard for me, carrying the groceries. Always tell me, Mom, you look pretty today, or he loved hunting. Like I said, he got his first deer on his 10th birthday. He'd got several. He burnt me out on deer meat. I don't care to eat deer meat ever again, probably. And he went through the phase where he wanted to have the hide tanned, and we did all this stuff. And he liked riding 4-wheelers. He was an outdoor person. He liked to make other people happy. For my last birthday, he came out and bought 3 big T-bones, one for me, one for my boyfriend, and one for him. And he bought the baked potatoes and the potato salad and everything to go with it. And he come out and cooked it on the grill for me. And he was just a good person. He would give you, like Susan said, she met him, I think, once before he passed away, and he went up for counseling with Susan. And he was in active addiction at the time. And she goes by donations, but Corey pulled some money out of his wallet and paid her for her services.
And that doesn't happen that often. And again, he was in active addiction. And when we were talking about rescheduling him and walked out of the office, and he said, well, I need to give you something for your time. And I said, well, it's free. It's up to you. You don't have to. And he handed me $16. And that's just a memory for me. You don't get that very often. And for somebody in active addiction, we take our last penny. And so for him to do that it just showed me what kind of person he was. And I believe that he did want to change, and he wanted a better life for himself. And we become trapped in the addiction, not just before we start recovery, because he did start his journey in recovery and he relapsed, but we become trapped in that. And during a relapse, we beat ourselves up and we're full of shame and we feel like we've let everybody down, and that takes us right back to that trap. And I think that may have been where he was. But he definitely, in the hour that I met him, he loved life. Like, he loved people. He loved to work, and the job that he had, I think, was an outdoor job.
It was
working on a farm or something, and that's some hard work.
Corey did. A lot of the jobs Corey chose were hard work.
Yeah.
Very hard work. And I've had many people come up to me and tell me different jobs he was at. He's one of the best workers that I've ever had. Until the addiction kicked in, you know, and then he would start missing work. And
yeah, he did talk about, I mean, he talked about, and you know, we're all different and we all like different jobs, and when he was talking about the job and what it consists of, I'm like, who would like that? Yeah. but he liked it. So I'm thankful today that I do have a memory of him, that I did get to meet him, and like I said, just that little brief time that I had with him, now there's a part of my life that he's touched even my life. The Hope House is a facility in Richmond, Indiana for men, and the program that Corey went to, and when you talk about Corey being in that facility, the changes that he started to make. Can you share with us, if you think about the day he checked in and then when you started visiting him, like what things did you start seeing?
well, the day he checked in, you know, of course he was a mess. He was at rock bottom. He had just got out of the hospital he had overdosed twice in that weekend. He was a mess. He was homeless. He hadn't been eating right. His nerves were shot. He was just a mess. And we got him checked in, and it wasn't, I think just a couple days later, he said he got down on his knees and gave his life to God, and that's when I started noticing all the changes in him. He just had a smile that you couldn't wipe off. He was just happy as could be. And church, I would drive down to Richmond every chance I had to visit him, and then every Sunday I would drive down. He was attending a church in Dayton at the time, and I would drive to Richmond, and him and I would drive on to Dayton to church. And he just enjoyed it. He just enjoyed it. Just a big change from the Hope House. It's like I got my old son back. And the day he graduated, he just a smile, you just couldn't wipe it off. Just couldn't wipe it off. And he had goals. He had set goals and things he was working towards when he got out, and you know, get his license back, get him a vehicle, get him a job, and then start working on getting his own place. And
a lot of that was happening.
It was happening. The new job that he had just took, he had worked a week right before he passed away. He didn't even get his first paycheck. I had to go pick his first paycheck up, and his first paycheck was $700.
Wow.
So he was getting ready to make some good money and be able to get on his feet pretty good, you know. But he didn't make it there.
One of the biggest things with his passing is, like a lot of people that are in addiction, he didn't have life insurance. So the burden of burying him was on you, and you had to raise the money for that, and you did raise the money for the headstone. So a lot of that fell into place. But if someone is watching today that is in active addiction and you're struggling, we want to encourage you to think about your loved ones and the people that are going to have to deal with everything when you do pass. That's the big thing about this talk show, is we want to get out the effects that it has on everybody, and it's not just the addict. Ultimately, it starts with the addict to make everything start getting better. It's that domino effect, and when the addict reaches out for help and they start getting better, then ultimately it makes the families better. Just like when Corey was in the facility, you probably slept better.
I was able to start sleeping again. I think I was just as exhausted as he was through his addiction. I felt just as exhausted as he was. And then when he got out of the Hope, well, while he was in the Hope House, because at night I would always leave my phone on, afraid to get that call. And he went in the Hope House, and I was actually able to turn my ringer down at night and things again, and actually able to sleep and rest.
Yeah. And it does take time, and it's not been that long. It's been about
It's been 7.5 months.
Yeah. What would be hope to carry forward his memory? What are some things that you may like to do to just share who he was, and maybe to help somebody else in the process?
Thursday I'm going to talk at a Brianna's Hope meeting in Portland. And, maybe if I can reach one person and help them, it would make it all worth it. I'm not too good with all this getting up and talking in front of people and all this stuff. I'm trying to get better with it, but I'm going to do it because if I can help one person, it would all be worth it.
Well, the first time that I asked you to speak at one of our events was the first time that you had ever spoken. And you really do good. Sometimes I think we can put our own expectations so high that we just mess ourselves up. We think that we're not good enough. And so to encourage you, you really do a good job. And I know at the event where there was a facility there and they heard you, you touched a lot of lives there. And so I'm definitely going to encourage you to keep sharing. It's not only his story, it's your story too.
Right.
But to carry his memory on and to help other people not get to that point, not lose their life. And it does take that. It takes somebody to hear maybe something that Corey did and they can think to themselves, that's me, like I do that. And it may be just that moment that helps them. Yeah. So I'm really excited to hear that you're going to go and speak again. So, keep doing it. And there's going to be lots of opportunity to share his memory. We don't want to know that he passed away and then that's it.
Right.
And that you carry the hurt with you and you're not sharing the life of him with anybody. You'll find that, and this is just speaking from experience, because I have lost someone to overdose, and after I started to get better and work on myself and get through some of that grief, I share that memory. And the more that I can share his life, the more it helps me today. But the more that I think helping other people, just knowing that his death could help somebody else maybe live. I know the person that the loved one I lost, Tim, I know that he would have died in a second for somebody else to be saved. And I think I've seen that in Corey too. If Corey knows that his life is going to help somebody else, then he would understand that it was for a reason.
Talking about sharing their lives, I was guilty of it myself. You hear of somebody being on heroin and you automatically think they're no good and all this stuff, all the negative thoughts, and I was guilty of it myself. So I'm learning too, going to these Brianna Hope meetings and talking with you, they've got a story too.
Yeah.
They're not just a heroin addict.
And that's a powerful testimony for you to even share that when you are speaking. I used to be one of those judgmental people.
I was guilty of it.
Yeah. And today you love
I would tell
people.
him, why do you want to be like so-and-so, these known addicts? Why do you want to be like them? And some of the mean things I would say to him, but I was just trying to get through to him, to make him realize.
Right. You want to shake it out of us. You want to beat it out of us.
Yeah.
You love it out of us. And sadly, that is not the way that it works.
I found out nothing really worked until he was ready.
Well, things that people say to us could be that moment that clicks for us, and encouraging somebody that you may run into that's in active addiction and really struggling. Because there's not a lot of people, it's like you said, you used to judge that. And so you used to judge people that were in active addiction, and a lot of people in the world do that. So if everybody would, if you saw somebody that was homeless and in addiction, and they didn't look up to your standards, I guess I would say, and they looked like, it's obvious we're struggling. We look horrible, and you can tell that we're just struggling. And if everybody in the world would say, you know, if I see somebody on the streets today struggling, I'm gonna say something nice to them. Or if you buy it's hot out, so if you get them a water, you know, that's going to show some compassion and love, even though that's not enabling them. You're just helping them survive when it comes to getting a drink. And if more people would do that, it would make a difference. You know, we believe, at least for me, and just working with a lot of people today that struggle with addiction, I think I could speak for other people, that when we're struggling, there are so many negative comments and so much stereotype out there that we don't believe in ourselves. And for somebody to say something nice to us, it really almost blows us away. So it's something that's going to stick with us. Just like with me, I had an officer, he had to do his job, and he had me cuffed, but he took the time to say, why are you doing this? And that he told me I was worth more. He said, you're worth more than this. And I was in shock, because this person's telling me I'm worth more than what I'm doing. And it just stayed with me. And I could remember days after that, just back and forth, almost like a Ferris wheel in my mind, thinking, am I really worth something? So it could take that. You know, it could take that one thing. And so as you're sharing the story, you know, to maybe think about adding that part in there, because you've changed your perspective on it, and some people need.
You know, you hear they died, they've overdosed, and it's kind of like, well, they deserve to die, you know. Kind of how I used to think. Not that I thought that anybody should deserve to die, but that's kind of how you look at it when you hear somebody overdose on heroin, or you know, they were just an addict.
Yep, another junkie. They all need to die.
You know,
I've heard that a lot.
When it happened to my son, he was more than just an addict. I knew the Corey that the rest of the world didn't know. I knew the good heart he had, and the kind heart, and giving, good personality, and the humor, and the rest of the world just knowed him as an addict, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you could, you know, there are people watching, so if you could say something to, whether it's a parent, you know, whether it's the loved one of an addict or the addict themselves, what could you say that could maybe help them choose a new path? One thing that we try to help with is, you are the parent of an addict, but you also have a recovery. And so maybe some of the steps that you've been taking to work through some of this, and to help yourself be better. If I look at the beginning of talking to you for the first time, and now, a lot's changed, because you weren't going to talk about this, and it was hard to get out of bed most days.
Yeah.
So
I can feel myself getting better. Not that I'm good, but I can feel myself getting better. I'm able to get out and do things with my daughter, and we went to a concert the other night, and not that Corey was not on my mind most of the time still, but I feel like I'm getting a little better. I can breathe a little bit now. You know, he's always going to be, I'm always going to miss him terribly.
And it takes time. It's been 7.5 months.
Yeah.
So maybe share just some of the things that you started doing to help get you to the point, and you're still grieving, but you're just you're doing a little bit better with the grieving.
Yep. Learning to cope with it a little better. I would just, if I was a parent, you know, and knew what I knew now, I would just tell them to use kind words. Don't put them down like I did. And it didn't work with Corey, and it's probably not going to work with anybody else either. So use kind words. Think about what you're saying to them, and try to be more supportive of them. You know, just be more supportive of them, and don't enable them like I did. I got to the point where I quit giving him money and things like this, but I would still feed him, do his laundry, and give him rides places. And I got better with the enabling, but I still did some.
Well, we want to thank you for being on the show and taking the time out. I'm really proud of what you're doing. And I know it takes a lot of courage to do it, but we know that Corey's life was worth way more than his addiction. You know, he was a person, and he wasn't just that male 23 overdose.
Right.
And that's what we want to get past.
Well, it's like I get a little comfort in knowing I feel like God went ahead and took Corey to spare him from the rest of his life struggling with this disease and just homeless and all the stuff that it put him through. I just feel like God went ahead and took him to keep him from having to go through all that again. And that's a little bit of comfort that I get.
And you know he was saved.
And knowing he was saved and baptized, I know he's in heaven. So I do get comfort from that. I'm still stingy, greedy, whatever you call it. I still want him here.
Right.
But I know he's in a better place.
And you still visit the Hope House, their service. They actually have a service twice a month, right? On the state hospital grounds in Richmond. And you go there.
Yeah.
You know, that because of him going into that facility, you still have kind of like a recovery family when it comes to that. And you've even talked to some of the people that are in the program when you go, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're sharing his story in many ways, and you know what that program has to offer because they did help him.
It's a good program.
So we want to encourage you, if you are struggling and you need an inpatient facility, just reach out to us. You can reach us on our Facebook page and send a message. You can get on YouTube on the Let's Talk Recovery show, and you can always comment on one of the shows. You can get on our website, and we are here to listen, connect, and motivate you. Recovery is possible, and people are dying, but that doesn't have to happen. And if we take the steps necessary to change our life, miracles do happen. Today, I am a recovering addict, and I don't look like I used to. I don't talk like I used to, and my walk has even changed. I can tell you, and this is because I like to joke in my recovery today. I was actually sharing with somebody this week. When I used to talk, I always used to bob my head. There was always something going on with my head, and even that has changed. So we calm down a little bit because active addiction, we can be fearful and we're agitated and we're really all over the place. But recovery can slow us down. It can help us make better decisions, and we can live a successful and productive life. We can regain custody of our children. We can have a job. We can have a vehicle, and we can just rebuild our family, and the mending process starts. And so I encourage you, if you are struggling today, whether it's inactive addiction or you are in recovery and you're struggling with staying in recovery, we want to encourage you to keep moving forward. Some days we can struggle and have a really bad day and just want to throw in the towel and give up. But if you fight through that and you continue to build your recovery and reach out to those that support you and those that will lift you up and not tear you down, you can get through that day. And it will be in the past. We are not supposed to live in the past, but we're supposed to be in today and live in today and do the best that you can today. So we thank you for visiting us on the Let's Talk Recovery show. We ask that you keep Unchained Praises in prayer, and we ask that you pray for Billie and her continued healing. Thank you for joining us.